from working at Unilever for about 34 years, worked for about 40 years altogether. Retired a little bit early. When I was younger, I grew up on a dairy farm in southwestern Pennsylvania. And my dad got a hive of bees for both of us whenever I was about 9 years old. He was very busy on the farm. It ended up I took care of the bees. I had about a dozen hives of bees on the farm, produced honey. We sold milk there on the farm, and then I sold the honey also. My dad made a label that my last name is Gaut, G-A-T, but called the farm Gautland, and he called it the land of milk and honey, which I thought was pretty cute. And it really was. We produced milk and we produced honey. A few years ago, I started hearing about all the difficulties honeybees are having, and certainly I was interested in honeybees. There's a couple different brochures.
Yes.
The pass this one out here.
Good. Okay.
We'll talk about that in a sec. So I thought, well, I can keep honeybees. That's relatively easy. So I got a couple hives a couple years ago. I started finding out it's not as easy to keep honeybees now as it used to be. There's a couple different threats of honeybees. One is a parasitic mite that is naturally occurring in Asia, but it came and has invaded the honeybees that we have.
I want you to speak loud because somebody cannot hear you.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Who's this somebody?
I guess he can hear. I now have about 18 hives altogether. This last season I produced about 500 pounds of honey. Here's a sample of it here. Emmy's selling some of the honey in her shop. Abner's is selling a lot of the honey because it's produced on Abner's farms. And it's local honey. Whenever it produces honey, it's really as it comes out of the hive, out of the honeycomb, and it contains a little bit of propolis, a little bit of pollen, and so forth in it as well. A lot of people like the local honey because they think it helps with their allergies and so forth as well. So I'm going to have a few minutes. So I talked about some of the products from the hive. One was the honey. What are some of the other products that come from beehives that we have? Wax, yeah. So you can pass this around. There's some comb out of the hive, and then this is some beeswax that's produced. And beeswax is used for a lot of different things. I see that during World War II, the government was trying to collect all the beeswax they could from beekeepers, and that was used to help lubricate and preserve ammunition and some other uses, for example. Another product from the hive is propolis. Bees go out and collect propolis. It's really resin from trees. And they use it as kind of an antibiotic, a medicine in a hive. They coat everything with a hive. That makes the hive sterile. Here's a little bit of propolis in here. You can open it up. It's kind of hard now. When it gets warm, it gets sticky. And you can make a tincture of propolis. And you can put this on wounds, and it'll help the wound heal, again, because of its antibiotic properties.
What is the shelf life?
The shelf life of honey, if it's in a sealed container, they've found honey that's perfectly edible in the Egyptian tombs because it's been sealed up. Honey in a hive will last for years. Bees would keep honey from 1 year to the next and only use it whenever they need it. And again, it's sealed up, it's sealed in that wax. Honey's very low moisture, and it's also a little bit acidic. So both of those things together, and there's also some other things in there to help preserve the honey. So it'll last a long, long time. You don't need to refrigerate honey. You can just leave it out on the shelf. But you need to keep it sealed because it's low moisture. It'll actually absorb water from the air, and then as it does that, it gets higher moisture, and then it can start molding. So that's good. Any other questions? Be glad. I could cover a lot on beekeeping.
Do you extract honey from the hives continuously throughout the year, or is there one period?
I just, around here, I just really extract in about mid-July. Okay. The biggest nectar flow comes in May, and allow them June to make that nectar into honey, and then I extract that in July. This one brochure here, I get a lot of questions about bees, and they turn out to be yellow jackets and not honeybees. And so the top insect on here is a yellow jacket, and the bottom is a honeybee. Question here at the table is how I don't, you know, I was in like about half a dozen or more hives yesterday, like this, no protective equipment. I rarely wear gloves. Sometimes I put a veil on just in case. I don't want my face stung. But I got stung once yesterday, and that's the first time I got stung in a long time. So how do I not get stung by bees? It's really kind of understanding and treating the bees gently. One beekeeper says, you respect the bees, they respect you. I think that's a good lesson for life overall, actually. So you just really learned to work with the bees, and they're very gentle. So I could take frames of bees out. Yesterday I saw the queen on a couple different frames. The queen is just an egg-laying machine. She just goes around looking for a cell to lay eggs in and bring that out and look at her, and she's not the least bit disturbed. She's just going about her job. It's totally fascinating to watch her work and the other bees work.
How many bees per hive would there be?
Ooh, how many bees per hive? That can vary. Oftentimes start off a hive very small, and it could have, I'm going to say, like 1,000 bees in it, pretty small, and that'll grow. Some hives, I've got hives now that are over 100,000 bees.
Wow.
And what is the life of a bee?
What is the life of a bee? Good question. It varies during the time of the year. During the spring and summer, the life of a bee can only be about 45 days. It hatches out, works in the hive for a few weeks, and then goes out and forages, either for nectar, for pollen, maybe water, or maybe propolis, and brings that back to the hive. And because that bee is out active, flying a lot of times, its lifespan is relatively short. Right now, the bees that are being born, hatched out, they'll last through the winter. They'll maybe survive 6 months. So right now I'm in a mode of really trying to make those bees that are hatching out now as healthy as I possibly can. Back to the mites, the parasitic mite. The mite is like having something the size of this plate stuck on your back, sucking the blood out of you all the time. And that's bad enough, but they also transmit viruses, and that weakens the bees. I'm working very hard to minimize the amount of mites in the hives to help them get through the winter.
What's the verdict on the neonicotinoid pesticides?
So there's kind of two verdicts, right? There's the verdict of, the question was about neonicotinoids and the effect on the bees. There's some people that the verdict is out for them. The neonicotinoids are what's everything wrong with the bees. We just ought to ban the neonicotinoids. So that's kind of the verdict in the media, and people that, how some people just get an opinion and that's what they go with. The opinion among the scientists, though, are that there's really no proof that the neonicotinoids are that detrimental to the bees. So the verdict's still out from a scientific perspective. So there's two verdicts out there.
Any more questions for John? Well, thank you, John.
Okay.